Should the Alabama Crimson Tide be in the playoffs this year? No, there is no reason for Alabama to be in the playoffs. And in this video, I'm going to attempt to answer why. So make sure you watch to the end. And we're going to start with spot number 1. So in the first spot of the playoffs, it's obviously without a doubt going to be the Georgia Bulldogs. They finished the regular season undefeated, and they had some very convincing wins. They demolished Tennessee in the regular season. They demoralized LSU in the SEC championship, and so there's no argument for putting them anywhere other than that number 1 spot. Luckily, the number 2 spot is also very uncontroversial. There's no controversy here either. Last week, Michigan was in the number 2 spot. Last night, once again, they had an undefeated regular season. And that included an absolute stomping of Ohio State. They also won the Big Ten championship against Purdue. And so for those reasons, that's enough. I could give you more, but there's no reason to. Undefeated, conference champion, no other reason is needed. Therefore, they get the number 2 spot. So now we get to where it gets a little more controversial, and that's with number 3 and number 4. Well, in my opinion, number 3 should not be controversial. Some people will try to argue that it should be. But to me, number 3 was and still should be TCU. And so we had TCU at number 3 and USC at number 4, but both teams lost their conference championship this weekend. So should both teams be out? No, both teams should not be out. But we'll start with TCU. TCU, I think they should be number 3, and no one can convince me otherwise. There's no way you can convince me that any other team should be number 3. They have 1 loss this entire season, and that was the conference championship. Let me see what else I have. They have wins against Oklahoma, Kansas, Oklahoma State, and Texas. They have some close wins. They had some come from behind wins, but their only loss came in the conference championship in overtime by 3 points. There's no reason to keep them out of the playoffs. So to me, there's no reason to put them anywhere other than number 3. So number 1, 2, and 3 should not be controversial. It's this 4th spot that is causing some arguments, and I understand why. You have Ohio State that was sitting at 5, so could they slide in? Or you have USC with 2 losses now, but they have some pretty good wins. Could they just stay in that spot? Let me go through what I think. So USC has 11 wins and 2 losses. So they have more wins than Alabama. They have the same number of wins as Ohio State with 1 more loss, but that came in the conference championship. Their best wins, they beat Notre Dame and UCLA, and both their losses came to Utah. So they lost to the same team twice. For Alabama had 10 wins and 2 losses in the regular season. They did not make an appearance in the conference championship. So there's that. And then their best wins were struggle wins over Texas and Ole Miss. That is what it is. So if we want to say they had 2 close losses, we also have to look at the fact that they had 2 very close, or actually 3 very close wins, because they also had a close win over Texas A&M. And now Ohio State. Ohio State had 11 wins. They did not go to a conference championship. They beat Notre Dame and Penn State, so 2 quality wins there. But then they got absolutely demolished by Michigan. So is that enough to keep them out of the playoffs? Personally, I don't think so. I think the 4th spot should go to Ohio State. I think we can immediately eliminate Alabama. There's no reason for putting Alabama in over Ohio State. And I don't like Ohio State. I like Alabama less, but there's no argument to me for putting Alabama in over Ohio State. Nick Saban wants to argue that, well, we ended the regular season 3-0.
And I think some of the teams show vulnerability when they have big losses at the end of the season, and our team finished strong. So
Who cares how you ended the regular season when you played? You played my team, Auburn. You're gonna put that as one of your marquee wins at the end of the season. I don't think that's how this works. What is the argument for putting a 2-loss team over a 1-loss team when that one loss for Ohio State was to a team that's gonna be in the playoffs? Like, come on, that's the dumbest argument I've heard from Nick Saban. So I think we can eliminate Alabama. There's no reason to put them in over Ohio State. Now, I could make the argument for Ohio State or USC in this final spot, but when you look at the body of work, I really think Ohio State earns that 4th spot, and I don't see the argument for putting anybody else there. I don't. There's really no comparison. And I think the number one reason Ohio State gets in over USC and Alabama is, why would you put a 2-loss Power 5 team into the playoffs over a 1-loss Power 5 team? Help me understand that, especially when the 1-loss Power 5 team has more quality wins, and the loss they have, while it was by a wider margin, they played a better team, bottom line. And finally, so here's my top 4 teams. Number 1, Georgia. Number 2, Michigan. Number 3, TCU. And finally, the controversial number 4 spot, Ohio State. That's who I put in the Final Four, and I would love to hear a couple things from you. One, what do you think I got right? What do you think I got wrong? What do you think is going to happen in the final playoff selection today? And then finally, there's something that's always bothered me, and that has to do with, how is it fair for teams to play another week of games, another game than other teams, and that keep them from getting in the playoffs? I think the 12-team playoff is going to fix this, but right now it's a problem. You honestly get punished for playing that additional game. That's just my thoughts. And I'm looking at USC. Last week they would have been in the playoffs. This week they're not, but they had to play an additional game that Alabama and Ohio State did not have to play. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching this video. Please consider hitting subscribe and liking this video, and I will see you in the next one.
hopefully we'll do everything we can to get the best teams in the playoff.